All right. Welcome to the Knicks Film School Postgame Show presented by BetUS. For a talk about this game, 114-112 Warriors win over the Knicks at MSG. I just want to say I don't know what's going on with Karl Anthony Towns. Missed tonight, as we will certainly discuss for personal reasons, but hope everything's okay with him. You know, he's had a rough go at things over the years, obviously with his mom tragically passing away, and just hope that everything's okay. Regardless of having nothing to do with basketball. He's a really good guy. That much has become incredibly clear in his short time here already in New York. So hope the cat's all right. Good transition. That before I say anything about this game, I want to acknowledge Warriors had their full complement of players, other than Jonathan Kuminga, who hasn't played for them in a very long time. Whereas the Knicks were missing one of their two MVP candidates, one of their two all-star starters, a guy that, again, hopefully he's not out for too long, but on set to make all NBA. That impacted them. And we're going to talk about how it impacted them. Obviously, they only scored 102 points tonight. The offense was stuck in mud for much of the night. I want to acknowledge that. I want to acknowledge that the Knicks, went 8 of 33 from deep for a sterling percentage of 24.2%. I thought several of those looks were good looks that they missed. And if it wasn't for OG Anunoby having a game, we'll talk about that. They would have had probably their worst three-point shooting game of the season. I want to acknowledge that. And I also want to acknowledge that Steph Curry is top 10 player of all time, who maybe is not the 100th percentile of himself right now at this stage of his career. But on some nights, and certainly tonight in some halves, he could certainly look like 96, 97, 98%, whatever number you're going to put. And there was nothing the Knicks weren't doing or doing poorly against him on defensively. I actually thought Mikal Bridges had a really good game defending Steph, even with him springing free a little bit there in the second half. I want to acknowledge all those things. And even in acknowledging all those things, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to tell you that Tom Thibodeau lost the Knicks this basketball game. I'm going to say it again. Tom Thibodeau, the head coach that is supposed to help them win games, is the reason that they lost this one. Josh Hart, I love Josh Hart. He's one of my favorite current Knicks. He's honestly one of my favorite all-time Knicks. I love him because I love him for a lot of reasons. I love him because he cares about all the right things. I love him because he goes out there and he tries his hardest every game, puts his body on the line. I love him because he's mortal. He is not a perfect player. He has what some might call a fatal flaw with his, jump shot that comes and goes and is never something that good teams are really going to guard. I love him. This is not a knock against Josh Hart, the player. Josh Hart didn't have it tonight. And actually, that's really being kind. Josh Hart was atrocious tonight. He was really bad. He's been, let's be polite and say iffy of late. He reached a new low tonight. He's going through it right now. A little bit of a crisis of confidence. Like he stopped taking 3-point shots altogether until it reached the point of absurdity. And then he's like, all right, I guess I got to take some of these again. Well, he's now putting up a few shots. He put up 4 tonight. Didn't come close on a single one of them. And whatever he is going through is impacting him in other ways. I did not think I would ever see him reach the level that he reached in the first half against Philadelphia early last week. And I would say, that was more the first half. This was over the course of a whole game. His final stat line, I'll just read it. minus 22, team worst, obviously. In 33 minutes, he was 1 of 8 from the field, missed all 4 of his threes, pulled down 8 rebounds, but only 1 on the offensive glass. Really was not a factor on the offensive glass at all. Had 2 turnovers and 3 assists, but I think even that's a little bit of a misnomer. Finished with 2 points. Atrocious game. Love Josh Hart. Part of the solution here. Winning player. Going to be around a long time. I hope to God they win championships and he gets his number retired. He was atrocious tonight. And yet, And it was very clear that he was atrocious tonight to anyone in the building. And yet, midway through the fourth quarter, with the Knicks down by 1, and the game goes to a timeout because the Knicks had been making a push. Josh Hart comes back in the game along with Jalen Brunson and Mikal Bridges. Now, putting Mikal Bridges in for Landry Shamet, totally fine with that. Mikal, we'll talk about Mikal on the offensive end. Again, I praised his defense. Didn't really have it from deep tonight. 1 of 5, 7 of 15 overall. Look, the offensive issues with Mikal Bridges are well documented. I don't think that he did anything particularly great tonight on the offensive end. But again, for defensive purposes, and because this is a guy who has made big plays for you, and it's not like he was having a terrible game. He was having, if anything, a slightly quiet game. But again, dude finished 7 of 15, and that included, I think, a couple of late garbage time misses because that was garbage time by the end. So put Bridges back in, fine with that. Put Brunson back in for campaign. Obviously, Jalen Brunson, best clutch player in the league this year. He was having himself a really good game. And yeah, love that. Great move. Wonderful. To put Josh Hart back in for Deuce McBride was nonsensical. And it's not that Deuce was having a great game either, to be very clear. He had 6 points, finished with 6 points, 2 of 7 from the field, 5 assists, no turnovers. It was a +8. But again, 24 minutes, like you can't make much out of that. There is no question to anyone who has watched this team recently that they reached their highest heights, at least right now. What they're going through some stuff. The starting lineup has been rough with Cat. They are better with Deuce McBride on the floor. And tonight, they were better with Deuce McBride on the floor. And it's not only because, and again, I know he took 2 threes tonight and missed both of them. It's not only because he is such a threat from deep and he needs to be honored from out there, but because there is a different life, there is a different spark, there is a different verb, any noun that you want to use when he is in the game. And that is on both ends of the floor. And I did not think it was a coincidence in the slightest. And I want to go back and I want to watch the tape because I'm not putting it on anybody in particular. But I did not think it was a coincidence at all that we come out of that timeout, which is, or not, it wasn't the substitutions, wasn't a timeout. Substitutions in between the first Anunoby free throw and the second one. And off of a missed free throw, Santos, a kid who is like, he wasn't great tonight, he didn't have a great line tonight, but like 90 some odd % of NBA players, you cannot leave him wide open with nobody near him behind the 3-point line. Gets the most open look that any Warrior has had all night. And what happens? There's a bunch of Knicks standing around with their palms up, looking around at each other. Like, oh, whose guy was that? Inexcusable. And again, was that on Brunson? Was that on Hart? Was that on Bridges? I'm not putting that on anyone, but it was a sign of things to come. Because the Warriors went on a run. The Knicks completely imploded. Couldn't get anything going on offense. Hart had the ball. It seemed like every time the ball touched Hart's hands, it was disaster. And again, nobody who was watching that game should have been surprised. And it was inexcusable. You want, now, I will give a slight caveat. You want to tell me that the lineup that he went to with 2.5 minutes left in the game, when the Knicks were all but out of it, where he took out Mitchell Robinson, who he had clearly been saving because he's on whether you want to call it a minutes limit, a minutes restriction, whatever. He played 15 minutes tonight. I think his limit is 18, and that makes sense because when he checked out with 2.5 minutes left to go, when Tibbs finally went small, he would have been on pace. He would have been on track for 18 minutes. So 18 minutes seems like that's where it's at right now. And I think that it probably is as much due to his conditioning as anything else, but we're neither here nor there. You want to tell me that, okay, leave Hart in the game and just bring in or keep in Deuce and just don't have a center. Take out Precious and like put it and just don't go with a center from the 6.5 minute mark. Fine. But then that's just yet another reason, why this one has to go on Tibbs' shoulders. We've seen more than enough evidence of what happens when you take Karl-Anthony Towns off the floor and you have Josh Hart on the floor with a non-spacing big, which is essentially all the minutes that Josh Hart has played this year without Karl-Anthony Towns on the floor. He has played with another non-spacing big because we haven't seen any minutes with OG Anunoby, at center. Either way, you want to tell me you should have gone to that? I would have been fine with that. Andrew Claudio, shout out to Andrew, was texting our group chat before the game saying, what are the odds that Tibbs goes small tonight with OG Anunoby at the 5? Perfect opportunity to do so against his team. And yeah, we saw it. We saw it when the game was over. It's not good enough. Now, there's always caveats. Going that small, needless to say, opens you up to offensive rebounds by the other team. It leaves you without a paint presence, without a traditional rim protector. And again, in those last 2.5 minutes when the game was on life support, we saw, the Warriors take advantage of that on a couple of possessions. Personally, I would have taken Hart out. I would have put Deuce in, and I would have gone with a traditional 5 and rolled with that. And maybe if that didn't work, then you go to the small ball. Or I would, if he was feeling more adventurous, could have gone to the small ball earlier. A plethora of options, none of which were selected. And instead, he went with the thing that very clearly was not working tonight at all. And it's incredibly frustrating. Did they deserve to win that game? No, they didn't. The Warriors were down 8 at halftime, and honestly, I thought they played better than the Knicks. They were just cold shooting. And the Knicks, they ended up with 105 points tonight, or 102 points tonight, excuse me, which is not great. And they got 29 points from OG Anunoby and 25 points from Jalen Brunson. And most of those were not a function of any kind of great offense. Most of those were just a function of those guys being really, really good. But then, again, throw Mikal Bridges in there as well. 6 of 10 on 2-point shots. Again, most of those were self-created. So you look at it, OG, Jalen, Mikal, vast majority of their shots came from self-creation. Even the bench, you look at like Campaign, what he did, like there was a lot of heavy lifting going on tonight to score. And I guess that's a transition to talking about the cat angle of it, which is they're just not, like, this team does not have the capability of being the sort of offense that we saw them be at times last year without Karl-Anthony Towns, because the center position is so drastically different. What Isaiah Hartenstein brought to this team last year at the 5, even as a non-spacing big, didn't matter. What he brought there as a threat that if you're gonna put 2 on Jalen Brunson and you're gonna use a big man as a screener, and and Isaiah Hartenstein gets an ounce of space, you could throw it to him. How many times did the Knicks or did the Warriors put 2 on the ball tonight, when Jalen Brunson had it, and there was no obvious outlet, because whether it's Precious there or whether it's Mitch there, they're just not any kind of a threat on the short roll from 20 feet from the hoop. And then when you have Josh Hart serve as your screener, which the Knicks do from time to time, he wasn't all that much more effective. Might have been less effective. So they are going to have to continue to be creative to the extent that they can be, to try to generate points for as long as Karl-Anthony Towns misses time. Now, the flip side of that, was the defense better? Yeah, I thought the defense was better for portions of the night. And yet, we were reminded that New York's defensive issues are not all on Karl-Anthony Towns' shoulders. I thought you saw that, frankly, from the opening tip. Yeah, Warriors missed a lot of shots in the first half. I thought the Knicks played long stints of good defense in the first half. Second half, cut up to death. It's like Edward Scissorhands out there. Just absolutely sliced to shreds with cuts to the basket in the half court and obviously with some timely transition buckets as well. I wrote a newsletter today. Shout out to all my Substack people talking about how we're 60 games into the season, now 61 games into the season. We're still talking about the same shit. Still talking about communication issues, still talking about breakdowns that come as a result of trying to, get, Brunson out of disadvantageous matchups. Tonight, I don't know that how much of it was that. There were definitely some communication issues, and it's just, I thought the level of attentiveness, frankly, was not there in the second half, which you can't have at home, or you shouldn't have at least at home. So, no, I don't think the Knicks played particularly well tonight. Other than some nice offensive performances from some individual players. And yeah, Steph Curry was awesome, and I thought the Warriors played good ball. The Warriors have been playing top 5 ball, top 5, top 6, whatever, somewhere in that range since they got Jimmy Butler. And they are now 9-1 with Butler on the floor, or Butler in uniform, I should say. Me and Benji did our championship equity rankings for the Patreon pod last week. Again, shout out to all of our patrons. I had the Warriors in 5th as having the 5th most championship equity in the league, because I thought they had been so good with Butler, and at least you could squint and you could see it. I don't think they're making a deep run, but whatever. Enough about the Warriors. They're really good. But this night did not need to go down like it did. With an uncompetitive final 5 minutes of the game. And, I have, there's no bigger Tom Thibodeau fan on the planet outside of maybe his family than me. And one of the things I've praised him for over the years is that whereas other coaches will go more with what the moment dictates, perhaps to the detriment of the long term. And I think the one thing where you have, Tibbs has many reputations. One of them is his players that are loyal to him to the death, perhaps to a fault. And one of the reasons players who jive with his style are loyal to him is because he is loyal to them, oftentimes, to a fault. Does that pay dividends in the long term? I'm sure it does. And I'm sure Josh Hart, is going to know he didn't have it tonight. Obviously, he knows he didn't have it tonight. He seems like a player who's fairly honest with himself. And the fact that he wasn't riding the bench at the end, but again, I talked about I'll end with this and then we'll move on. I talked about this with Jeremy on the pod that dropped yesterday, whatever it was. Yeah, we recorded it last night. Bench McCall against the Heat. And I just pointed out, I'm like, I don't know if McCall's one of Tibbs' guys yet. Not say he doesn't like McCall, not say he doesn't appreciate him, but is he one of his guys? And I contrasted that with Josh Hart. We know Josh Hart is one of Tibbs' guys. And I said it on the pod. I said, he's going to go with him through thick and thin. And we saw it tonight, and it bit the Knicks in the ass. So, all the caveats, no Cat, great Steph, bad three-point shooting, the whole thing. You were due for a clunker in a close game in a clutch situation. All that is fine. Still, this one still gets under my skin. And I wish we would have seen the end of this basketball game, at least with the players on the floor who would have given them the best chance to win. And that did not happen. So, frustrating. That's all I got to say. I don't think we have anything before we get to the Super Chat, so I think we could go right on into whatever folks want to talk about. And then we'll do a couple ad reads later, but it's going to be a little bit of a lighter show, which I'm sure people don't mind. Okay. Starting us off, Kevin Danishevsky. What's going on, brother? I'm okay with the loss because I know Cat, but I'm really frustrated that Hart closed tonight. When he doesn't have it, I would really like to see them go to Deuce. Kevin, you just summed up my entire monologue in about 10 seconds. Yeah, I don't disagree with a single word of what you said, except you were a hell of a lot more polite than I am. Listen, people have said over the years, like, man, Tibbs could go on a killing spree, and I would find a way to defend him. When I defend the man, I genuinely believe in whatever I'm saying. I don't defend him just because I think he's infallible. And when he makes a mistake, should be called out. And he made a mistake tonight. And it was a big one. And I really do genuinely believe it cost them the game because of how good they have been in clutch situations over the course of the year. All right. Thanks, Kev, for starting us off. Next up, Jibo. What's going on, Jibo? How you doing? Let's never question Cat's worth again. I mean, I don't think we've been doing that. Maybe somewhere out there on the interwebs, folks have been questioning his worth. I mean, the one thing I'll say that I do think is a valid point is that and Benji has pointed this out, and I completely agree with him, just because again we've all watched these games. When Cat has these like great offensive games, they do become kind of silly, when he's in there, mostly from like, great offense, and it's not always made up for on the other end. Look, they're not as good with Townsend or they're not as good defensively with Townsend, but they are, even with their half-court defense ranking what it is, they are able to make up for his defensive deficiencies a lot more than they're able to cover up what they don't have on offense when he's not in there. And a big part of that, and again, shout out to Benji and shout out to DJ, they've both been saying this all year. A big part of that is Cat's is his defensive rebounding, which is a part of defense. So, and it's just like they're one of the best defensive rebounding teams in the league. So, yeah, and then like they find a way, but tonight they obviously didn't. Thanks, Jibo. Dr. Harmon Parmar, what's going on, Doc? Josh Hart just out here messing up the spacing and doing cardio. Tibbs got to take him out like he sat McCall last game. Hard to play him without Cat for space. Again, Doc, you're being much more polite about it than I was. It completely cramps the spacing. Because if you're the Warriors and you got Josh Hart out there and you got either Mitchell Robinson or Precious Achiuwa out there, it's 5-on-3. It's 5-on-3 on offense. When Josh Hart is playing like this, to be very clear, when Josh Hart is playing like this, when Josh Hart is at his best, you could make up for the lack of spacing because he's assertive, he's active, he gets himself involved in it. He's a value add, he's pushing the pace, he's crashing the offensive glass in responsible ways. You make up for it. You his pluses outweigh his minuses, and even then, you go against the right defense or defenses that know what they're doing and that are disciplined. And this Warriors, say this about the Warriors, they've changed over a lot of pieces over the years. They are still an incredibly disciplined defense and an incredibly smart defense. And for anybody who just started watching basketball last year or something, yeah, the Warriors offense gets all the attention and Steph Curry threes and the whole thing. Their dynasty was built on defense, first and foremost. And if they go and win the championship this year, and or let's not say win the championship, if they go make a run this year, I think it's going to be on the back of, on their defense as well. And Jimmy Butler obviously helps that. So they were locked in. They knew what they were doing. They knew what they had to do. Honestly, it didn't look particularly challenging for them. It didn't look like they broke a sweat defending the Knicks. And look, does it mean you're not going to play Josh Hart with a non-spacing center for as long as Cat's out? Obviously not, because then what are you going to play Josh Hart? 5 minutes? Again, you need Josh Hart. And you also need him to work out these kinks. But the last 5 minutes of the game, last 6 minutes of the game was not the time to do that. Thanks, Doc. Appreciate you. Drew P, what's going on, Drew? Josh has played defense like Randall all year. Someone had to say it. Missing rotations and pointing at teammates. Can't play D like that and be treated like a center on offense. No, you cannot, Drew. No, you cannot. I feel like I'm watching the game sometimes and I'm like, is it me? Am I seeing things? How many times is there just no hand up for a contest? How many times is the help off the corner too deep where can't get back in time? How many times is the point of attack soft and there's a blow by? Like, I hate to say this. I can't. It sounds like I'm really ragging on Josh, but like, this is a good point, Drew. This is a good point. It's a fair point. You want to feel a lot better about Mikal Bridges' defense? Go watch Josh Hart guard some of the point of attack at times. It's and then there's missed rotations, there's falling asleep on cuts. There's all these things. The theory of the case was not just OG Anunoby being what we saw OG Anunoby be against Miami, and I thought he was good tonight too. It just wasn't as loud. It isn't just Mikal Bridges handling those point of attack duties. It is 3. It's supposed to be 3 really, really good or better defensive wings. And Josh Hart on defense this year has been barely average. I'm trying to be kind. Do I think he's capable of more and capable of better? Yes. And you know why I believe that? Because I think, again, not long ago in the Miami game, I thought he turned it on late. And we've seen Josh turn it on at times when he really needs to and when they really need to make a push on defense. Is he conserving his energy? I'm sure he is. Because of, again, to bring it back to Tibbs if you want, because he plays a ton of minutes and he's in constant motion and like there's a lot that is asked of him. And it's a long season and he doesn't take games off and all that stuff. So that all factors into it. But no, you call a spade a spade. Call a spade a spade. It has not been good enough this year. Not for what the Knicks need from him or needed from him. Still need from him. Let's hope he turns it on in the playoffs. Thanks, Drew. Scott Thomas, what's going on, Scott? We keep the hits on, keep on coming. Josh Hart's worst game of the season. Next roster cycle needs to come off the bench. Been very consistent this year from the preseason up until now. I think this should be the starting lineup. This season. Because I think this season, given what the roster is, they deserve, and the organization deserves, and the coaching staff deserves a full year, including the playoffs, to see what this starting five, which again, on paper, makes all the sense in the world. I think everybody deserves the opportunity to see it through until the end of the year. What I have also said pretty consistently, and what you are saying here, because you specified it, Scott, and that's why I really appreciate this comment. Next roster cycle or next transaction cycle, if you want. Josh Hart, I agree with you. He is better served as a sixth man. He's better served coming off the bench. It was a beautiful thing when he first came here, coming off the bench. Last season was kind of an odd season in that he started off, it was just a very strange season for him. It was kind of quiet. And then it got going. Now, I think last season was a little bit of a weird year. And I think putting him in the starting lineup actually got him going. Maybe it needs to revert back. Maybe it needs to revert back. And by the way, and I'm literally going to go against what I just said about a minute ago, if this keeps going, if this level of play, because again, this is not just tonight. I agree with you. It was probably his worst game of the season, but this is not a new thing. Josh Hart has been playing poorly for a little while, and he's been not himself for a while. If this continues for like, I don't want to put a number on it in terms of games, but if it continues for a while and we're getting close to the playoffs and he's still like this, like, then it becomes a tougher or more interesting conversation going into the postseason. You know, and I use that term conversation purposefully because I think it would need to be a conversation amongst the leaders of the team, because again, this guy is one of your leaders, which is again what I wish Tibbs did tonight. That's incredibly hard. You're taking your leader off the floor in the last 5 minutes. He is your, again, no pun intended, he is the heart of your team. We've had how many post games where Josh Hart does amazing things, and we've all universally agreed, heart of the team. So taking that guy off the floor, it's really hard. At the same time, you know, if you are the heart of your team, that also entails being unselfish and selfless and recognizing what's better for everybody may not be what's best for me right now. So, you know, just something to think about. Thank you, Scott. Jesse M. What's going on, Jesse? The book is out on Josh Hart. If he's not firing away from three, sadly, he feels useless on offense. I need more than a couple cool rebounds from him. Well, a couple things I'm going to push back on. One, don't diminish Josh Hart's rebounding. Josh Hart's rebounding is a weapon. It is one of the most significant weapons in the league when he's going right, because there's really no way to guard against it because of his size and because of the way teams guard him or don't guard him. Those are not only backbreaking, but like, again, you really can't guard against it. And that's a big part of the Knicks identity. So don't diminish the rebounding. And I'm also going to push back. And I think there are times when Josh Hart is not shooting it from three that he is extraordinarily useful on offense. I think when he is feeling confident from three, it is easier for him to make the sort of impact that we know, but we have also seen stretches from him where he is not confident from three and he is still able to make a significant impact on the offensive end. So I'm going to actually push back against pretty much everything you said. As far as like the book being out, like, yeah, but the book was out the day he came to the Knicks. Like, nobody's ever guarded him. And yet, you look at his individual numbers, you look at his impact numbers, not this season, interestingly enough. But like I quoted a stat in the newsletter today, of every two-man pairing of the Knicks for the Knicks starting lineup. So 16 different two-man pairings, right? Or actually, wait, no, it might be 14 different or whatever it is. All like OG with every other starter, Brunson with every other starter, Hart with every other starter, so on and so forth. The best offensive rating of any of those two-man pairings is Josh Hart and Karl-Anthony Towns. That is not a coincidence either. Of course, Towns was not able to play tonight, so we got what we got. Thanks, Jesse. Kevin Danishevsky with another one. We love Josh Hart. Yeah, we do. But like RJ and Randall, though different players, his ultimate destiny on a championship team is a sixth man. Would love to see a transition. I think where me and you disagree, and where me and probably a lot of other people are going to disagree, is I would not make the change. I would not make a change right now. I agree with the previous comment where I think the person who should start for Josh Hart is not on this basketball team right now. Now, I do think it is a very interesting conversation about whether that player is, I mean, really, there's three options. Is that player a center? And if it is a center, all due respect to Mitch, I just don't think that it's ever going to be Mitch. I don't think, and again, don't take my opinion for it. Mark Stein just reported it. We talked about it. They were in on Walker Kessler right before the deadline. So if it's a center, my gut feeling, not Mitch. I could be wrong. My gut feeling, and again, I'm just reading the tea leaves. Second option, it's another wing of some kind, but a wing that has a little bit more of a traditional game, and it's just going to be more of a spacing threat and give you some size on defense. And then option number 3 probably comes with a new coach. And in fact, certainly comes with a new coach, and it's Deuce Pride. Because we saw more than enough of Emmanuel Quickly never starting games here to know that Tibbs is just never going to start a double small backcourt with 2 point guard size players. If you want to play devil's advocate on that statement, you could tell me that the guy who would have gone to the bench for Quickly was RJ, and they were just never going to do that for political reasons. That, like, Josh Hart, for as much as he means to this team, I don't think it's quite the same thing. And especially, it's like but then again, it would be demoting him, because it's not like you're going out and signing someone. You'd be putting someone that's already on the roster ahead of him on the depth chart. So yeah, I think that would be with a new coach, but we'll see. Maybe that happens. Who knows? Thanks, Kev. Jesse M with another one. Josh was great off the bench last year, but now we're seeing his warts. Now that he's playing 40 minutes a night, honeymoon phase feels over with him. Again, Jesse, I love you, man. But what season did you watch last year? I'm going to pull it up right now because I don't want to speak out of my ass. Josh Hart started here. Josh Hart started 42 of 81 games last year. And he started from the game after the Randall injury, and he started every game for the remainder of the season. And he was really good. He played 40 minutes a night. It was a stretch of 36 games. They had, they finished off the winning streak with him in the starting lineup. They had, a wonderful West Coast road trip with him in the starting lineup. They beat the freaking Philadelphia 76ers in the first round with him in the starting lineup. And they probably would have beaten the Indiana Pacers in the conference finals with Josh Hart in the starting lineup, had the team not completely fallen apart. So apologies to you, Jesse. I don't know maybe you were in a coma for the last 4 months of last season. You want to tell me that should all get a caveat because Josh was more confident from 3 during that stretch. That's not true because he shot 30% on threes when he started last year, on under 4 attempts per game. It wasn't until the Philly series that he really turned it on. So, and again, that was not smoke and mirrors. The Knicks figured out legitimate ways to be a more than a functional offense, I thought, to be a really good offense with Josh Hart in there and Isaiah Hartenstein. That's the key. And Isaiah Hartenstein, who was such a skilled offensive player, that it made it tenable, So, again, we're going to agree to disagree there. All right, let's take a minute to hear a quick word from our good friends at BetUS, which, hey, did you know they have a casino now? For all my followers who like slots or live casino dealers, you can take advantage of BetUS's amazing sign-up bonus. It is 200% sign-up bonus up to $5,000 or a 250% sign-up bonus for crypto up to $5,000. Generous promotions, tournaments, they got them running all the time. If you want in on this, you can sign up now using promo code YouTube150. It's right there on your screen to receive 150% bonus on your first deposit, as well as 125% bonus on your next 2 deposits up to $2,000. Again, up to $5,000 is the 200% sign-up bonus, and $250 for crypto. Remember, gambling involves risks. Only use or only gamble with funds you can afford to lose. All forms of betting carry financial risk, and it is down to the individual to make bets with or without the assistance of the information provided. Okay. Still annoyed. 41 minutes in. Still very annoyed. Andrew P. What's going on, Andrew? Beautiful basketball, not a Tibbs coached offense. Listen, we'll save our criticism for where it's deserved. Does Tibbs get knocked for the decisions he made tonight? Absolutely. Was anyone in the universe, or has anyone in the universe complained about a Knicks offense this year that has been not slightly, not by a somewhat margin, that has been unequivocally in every way, shape, and form the best Knicks offense ever? Not of my lifetime, ever. You want to tell me the championship offenses move the ball like nobody's business and they were the greatest passing team of all time, the most unselfish team of all time? I'll give you that. So let's go with in the last 50 years. Does Tibbs not get credit for that? Does he only get the blame for the bad stuff? This is the stuff that's ridiculous. And this is why sometimes when it's a iffy thing, when it's an on the fence thing, I'm going to go to bat for the coach because there's so many people like you out there, Andrew, who are just completely and utterly ridiculous. Now, you want to tell me, again, Tibbs did himself no favors tonight because he had Josh Hart out there with a non-spacing big for so many minutes, and he didn't curtail Josh Hart's minutes more in favor of a Deuce McBride or even, a Landry Shamet or something, and that would have juiced the offense more. That's fine. I'll give you that. But don't tell me the man doesn't know how to coach offense. Again, same thing as Jesse. Have you been in a coma? I don't know. Next up. Rafa. What's going on, Rafa? That sucked. Fire Tom Thibodeau. No adjustments, no creativity. Okay, well, again, we're not firing anybody tonight. You want to knock him on the adjustments tonight? Totally fine. Didn't go to what seemed like it was a worthy lineup until very late. I think the reality of the situation is, and again, this is like it's a Venn diagram. There's some overlap here because some of this you could blame him for because of the decision making, but some of it is when you have Josh Hart playing like this, and he's not spacing you out, and you have Precious Achiuwa, who is a name I have not yet said tonight. It's getting to the point where Precious has become a little painful to watch at times. I know he made a little jump hook there in this game. It was not great. Mitchell Robinson still working his way back, still knocking the rust off. He's not his full self yet. So, and again, Mitchell Robinson, Precious Achiuwa, these are not guys you can throw it to on the short roll. And when you have them on the floor, and when they're not threatening offensive players at all, when you have Josh Hart on the floor, and again, like I said before, defense is able to play 5-on-3. It's like there's only so much creativity you could do. But again, it goes right back to, okay, well, why are those players on the floor? There's a gray area here. You got to play Josh Hart. You can't not play Josh Hart. Like, you played him 33 minutes tonight. Basically, what I was asking for is play him. I wish they would have played him 6 less minutes. I wish you wouldn't have come back in the game. Finish the game with 27 minutes, I guess. That's about as little as you could get away playing Josh Hart for with the cat injury and with their roster the way it is right now, which, again, I would have been fine with. If bench him for the last 6 minutes, you rode him as long as you could ride him, you got 27 minutes out of him, you were still in the game, it was a 1-point game. It's fine. Not everybody's going to have a great night. It happens. But anyway, no, we're not firing anybody tonight. Sorry, Rafa. Haitian Ferg, what's going on, man? Really missed Cat tonight. Not enough from McCall. Granted, he had to guard Steph. Still needs to be more assertive. OG kept us in it, and Brunson might have stayed out too long in the fourth. Good credit Golden State Warriors defense. Yeah, someone else texted me about did he leave the starters on the bench for too long, and specifically did he leave Brunson? This is the yin and the yang. Brunson tonight played 37 minutes. It's again, it's like when are the minutes too much and when are they not enough? It's like there's a very little it's a tightrope, right? That you have to walk. As far as missing Cat, goes without saying. I think you just nailed on something, which again, we're 46 minutes into this, and bad job by me because it's something I should have talked about at the open. Because if we're looking big picture for this team, not only this year but moving forward, I think the OG Bridges dynamic is a fascinating one to watch because at this point, I think we have enough evidence to suggest that when OG Anunoby feels more involved as an offensive player, you are going to get the best version of OG Anunoby. And I think we saw a pretty damn good version of OG Anunoby tonight, in addition to the guy, obviously, that we saw in the Miami game and for large stretches of the Memphis game, and by the way, OG Anunoby, what is he doing now? Firing away from three with confidence. Right now, he is their best three-point shooter and is not particularly close. But again, opportunity. Mikal Bridges is a guy who, no, he hasn't been enough of this guy this year, to be very clear. But he's a guy that, when he is at his best, teams, and this is part of the whole theory behind getting him, he could help bend a defense or to your will just by being out there and just by being a threat and by moving around and being such a quick trigger from the corners, especially, but theoretically from above the break, even though he hasn't been so this year. And I don't, think about him on those Phoenix teams when everybody considered him like the best role player in the NBA. He was the fourth option, after Devin Booker and Chris Paul, who was that was still kind of all NBA version of Chris Paul, and DeAndre Ayton. And then if anything, it was maybe a mix of like 3, 4, 5 because you had Cam Johnson there too. Cam Johnson got a lot of meat on the bone. So I guess what I'm saying is, Mikal has been the third option this year, and it has been, let's say, an uneven offensive season from OG Anunoby. And then tonight, no Cat. OG he takes the baton, he runs with it, looks awesome. And Mikal just kind of looked like Mikal's looked all year. Now, your response to that, Haitian, I'm not saying you're wrong, to be clear, is Mikal needs to be more aggressive. He needs to be more assertive. He needs to do more. I don't think that's an unfair criticism, and I don't think that that's an irrational ask of you. I guess as a very roundabout way of saying, I think OG Anunoby needs the offense to go through him more for him to be the best version of himself on both ends of the floor. I'm not sure if the same is true of Mikal. How do you solve this seeming problem? Well, for one, when Cat does come back, how can you make sure that OG Anunoby still feels as valued and as included in the offense and gets, his fair number of bites at the apple? And on Mikal's end, just like, how can he be more aggressive within the flow of the offense? Or maybe on nights where it is going kind of tough, does it need to be less does it need to be outside of the flow of the offense? Because there is really not much of a flow of the offense because of the restrictions that they're dealing with. I don't really know. I don't disagree with you. They needed more from him tonight, but again, he took 15 shots. He made 7 of them. It's not a bad offensive performance by any stretch. But I also agree with you. It's tough. It's a tough dynamic. They compiled this roster together. They compiled, put these pieces and like it's a good fit in theory, but like everybody needs to sacrifice. And it's like, all right, well, who's doing the sacrificing? Is Jalen Brunson sacrificing? Well, he's not sacrificing many shots. I know he's not scoring as much this year. He's sacrificing. I could look it up, actually. how many shots a game Jalen Brunson is sacrificing. Here, Jalen Brunson last season. Let's do per 36 minutes because that's a little fairer. Last season, Jalen Brunson, 21.8 shot attempts per 36 minutes. This season, 18.9. So Brunson's actually, he's taken 3 less. So you know what? In fairness, that's a sacrifice. Cat, I think if anything, you want him shooting more from 3 at least. You want to tell me he could take a little bit more of a haircut? It's fine. But I don't know. It's a tricky balance that they're trying to achieve here. And I hope that they get there. The best teams do get there. The best teams play with total and complete unselfishness. The Knicks are not really there yet. I'm not saying they're a selfish team. They're not. But they're not. That level of cohesion is not there yet. It's not. Maybe we'll get there. And by the way, even though it hasn't been there, the offense has still been awesome. Thanks, Haitian. That was good. IMAK Legend, what's going on, IMAK? Sad, winnable game. Hope Cat's okay. Sounds concerning. Yeah, Tibbs' words before the game didn't sound great. I'm not going to sit here and speculate because I'm not responsible. But we just hope he's okay. Just hope he's okay. Thanks, IMAK. Bulldog Boxing Promotions. What's going on, Bulldog? Forced an 8-second violation in 3 straight games. Put the banner up. Raise the banner. Right now. Absolutely. That's good. That was good. I needed that. Appreciate you, Bulldog. Just Richards. What's going on, Just? How you doing? Hey, John. Not that upset at the loss. The only things I wished Tibbs played OG at the 5 sooner. Again, that's the alternative. That's the alternative. If you, I'm not going to critique you at all for wanting that. Hopefully something they could do in the playoffs. You know, my big thing, and I think I said this, I don't know if I said it on pod, but my suspicion is always, does he not go to that more because he's saving it and it's taxing on OG Anunoby's body? And I think there's some validity to that, but at the same time, look at who they were playing tonight. The only traditional center the Warriors played was Kevon Looney, because Quentin Post is like a 7-footer, but he's not a banger. He stands out on the 3-point line. You know, it was just Looney, and Looney tonight played, I'm guessing, 20 minutes? 14. So the opportunity was there. It's not like it would have banged up his body tonight. Would have solved the spacing issues for sure. The alternative theory, well, there's 3 theories. 1, he's trying to save OG's body. 2, as some of our previous super chatters would probably attest to, he's just not that creative of a coach. And number 3, he is, or I guess there's 4. Number 3, he's saving it for the playoffs, but not because of like wants to keep OG fresh, but because he doesn't want to give opposing teams a look now at something that he's going to keep as an ace in his pocket or ace up his sleeve come the playoffs. And I guess the 4th option, which is frankly the most likely option, is that he is so steeped in certain beliefs about things that you just do not compromise on if you could help it, that he's just not going to do it. And this goes all the way back to the Randall Obi minutes, where he just, like, he would put it in, but he would put it in when they were down big and he had no other choice. Well, what did he do tonight? He put OG at the 5 when they were down big and they had no other choice because of all of the things, the defensive rebounding, obviously, the rim protection, obviously. And if there are 2 things that he believes in, 2 of the 3 things he believes in more than anything, don't turn the ball over, grab your defensive rebounds, and protect the rim. Those 3 things. And 2 of them get sacrificed if he goes small. The difference, I would argue, is that I don't know that the offensive potential of the Randall Obi lineup was ever as good as the offensive potential with OG at the 5, because OG is a more threatening 3-point shooter than either of those guys ever were. That's number 1. And number 2, as a fill-in 5 in terms of defensively, to say that OG Anunoby is in a different universe than either of Julius Randle or Obi Toppin is the understatement of the year. So all goes back to, you have every right to be annoyed. I was annoyed. And yeah, that's it. That's all I have to say. Thanks, Juice. Frank Miranda, what's going on, Frank? What's up, Mac? It's your boy Frank from Patreon. I'm sorry, but it's time to really have a conversation about, drum roll please, you could put Hart in here, you could put Bridges in here, you could put Tibbs in here. He's going to go with Bridges. He can be the downfall of this regime. If this guy doesn't show up in April, this will be the biggest overpay in NBA history. I think he deserves the full year as a kind of adjustment. So I'm not, never say never. I find it very hard to envision a scenario in which I am, or any reasonable observer, is going to christen that trade a failure after 1 year. That said, could it be the downfall of this regime? Abso-fucking-lutely. And, does he need to be better? Yeah, he needs to be better. What I will say, Frank, and I say this with all the love and care in my heart in the world, because you know I love you. You know I genuinely love you. You're I call you a friend, and I don't say that lightly. I think you might be overreacting tonight to what has or based on what has been a frustrating season for Mikal. Because, look, Steph went off a little bit in the second half. There was not a human being on the planet that was going to be able to do anything about that. And in fact, give the Warriors credit, because on a lot of those made shots, they did a good job to get a different matchup. Hurrying down the court, not allowing Bridges to match up with Steph. And you know why they did that? Because he was doing such a good job on him in the first half. So defensively, I have nothing bad to say about Mikal Bridges tonight. And offensively, again, I get it. We want a little bit more from him. We should get a little bit more from him. The guy took 15 shots. He made 7 of them. It's not like Josh Hart's game. Let's just say that. Or by the way, the last game he had in Miami, which was atrocious from an offensive standpoint. And he wasn't great on defense, so it was a bad game. But he was 2 for 11 last game. That was really bad. That was really bad. Look, I agree with you. He needs to be better. I don't know if tonight is the night to kill Bridges. That's all I'll say. And yes, Kev, let's do a quick word from our good friends at, drumroll please, T Squared Social. You know what T Squared Social is. It's the best sports bar in New York, right down the block from Grand Central Station, and not all that far from Penn Station either. They have everything you want. They have duck bin bowling. They have simulators. They have darts. They have foosball. And, oh, yeah, they have a great freaking bar and a wonderful restaurant. If you want more information about T Squared Social, go to tsquaredsocial.com to learn about their club memberships, trivia nights, sports leagues, and much more. Or you could just walk in on a non-watch party night, say KFS sent you, get a free draft beer. The watch parties will be back very soon. We're doing one actually for the next Warriors game. What could possibly go wrong at that? Yeah, so shout out to T Squared Social. Your out of town scoreboard, as soon as I could pull it up. That's what someone said. Okay. We got Spurs over the Nets, Timberwolves over the Sixers, who just continue to lose, Cavs over the Bulls, Hawks lost to the Bucks, Raptors pulled it out against the Magic. The Magic are in a bad place right now. They did manage to score 40 points in the fourth quarter to make that a better game. Jacoby Walter had apparently a clutch 3 in the final seconds of that one. But yeah, Magic are kind of down bad. Pacers beat the Rockets. Rockets have been struggling a little bit lately. And right now, Lakers Pelicans is going on, as is Clippers Suns are down by 15. My goodness gracious. Things are not going well in Phoenix. Okay, that's your out-of-town scoreboard presented by T-Squared Social. And if you're wondering in terms of the record, Knicks currently 4.5 up on the Bucks and the Pacers. They obviously have the tiebreaker over both of those teams. Okay. All right, home stretch. Uptown Hoodie, what's going on, Uptown? This year's team will be remembered for looking lifeless versus good, great teams in national broadcast. It's been ugly. I don't, frankly, pay attention to when they are or are not on national TV. Anytime that the game is on MSG, I like my when I sit down, like what I do is like I just turn on MSG. And if the game isn't on MSG, I'm like, oh, that means the game must be on some other station. I never pay because I'll never watch another broadcast if the game is on MSG. Unless Mike Breen is doing the game. If Mike Breen's doing the game, I'll watch the other broadcast. Otherwise, I'll watch on MSG. I say this from a place of ignorance, admittedly. I think saying they've looked lifeless against good to great teams is a tough statement to make when they have won the season series against the Bucks, who are in 4th place. They've won the season series against the Pacers, who are in 5th place. They have swept the Nuggets, who are in 3rd place. They have swept the Grizzlies, who are in 4th place. They won a game against the Rockets, who are in 5th place. So, a lot of good teams in there. Thanks, Uptown Hoodie. Christian Mitchell, what's going on, Christian? I'm so disappointed in Coach Tibbs. You and me both, man. The players look wasted. Last season, Deuce played the best defense on Curry. Why would he shy away from that? Again, this is maybe agree to disagree. I thought Mikal Bridges did a really, really nice job. And the thing with Deuce is, I mean, his size is his size. I'm not saying he wouldn't have done a good or didn't do a good job of the opportunities he got. He didn't get many opportunities tonight. You're right to point that out. That's fine. In terms of these players look wasted, I'm guessing you mean like in this specific context, like you are wasting Deuce McBride's ability to guard one-on-one. For as much as I opened the show by praising Deuce and his overall impact on the team, and I obviously believe that, he has been a better point of attack defender for large stretches of the season than Mikal Bridges. The notion that he was going to, you put him on Steph Curry and he was going to shut down Steph Curry is, I'm sorry, crazy. Steph Curry started the game 3 of 10 with Mikal Bridges guarding him for the majority of the first half. And then in the second half, hit just some absurd shots. So this one, again, a little bit strong for my taste, but I get it. You're frustrated, and I certainly don't blame you for that. Thanks, Christian. Parrish Duggar, what's going on, Parrish? I know where this one's going. This awful, awful coach just let us come out third quarter and sleepwalk. He's so bad. He's made the Knicks experience pretty bad. It's Brunson or bust team now. Well, he's made the whole Knicks experience pretty bad. If that is true, Parrish, I say this from the bottom of my heart. I feel really bad for you. If the experience of watching a 40-21 basketball team has been bad for you, that is levels of personal obsession where you need to kind of rein it in somehow. This is a very enjoyable basketball team the vast majority of the time. They did not play great tonight, and Tibbs was frustrating with his decision-making tonight. All right, lifeless in the third quarter. I think that's probably a little bit strong. They did let the Warriors run on them. Those 11 transition points at the early third quarter are probably where the game turned. I think the missed shots had a lot to do with that, but you could still get back in transition even if you miss shots, And then guarding against the cuts. I don't know. Were they lifeless? I didn't think they were lifeless. They didn't have enough energy. They didn't have the proper energy. That's fair. Is that on the coach? I don't know. To each their own on that one, I guess. But if you want to blame him, again, I blame the hell out of him for a decision that he made. So if you want to blame him too, I'm not going to fight you on it. Thanks, Parrish. Parrish with another one. Tibbs has to go. Dolan. Precious has to go. Josh. Does Josh also have to go? I missed that part. Yeah, I don't know if Dolan's getting involved in any of this stuff. Sorry. Thanks, Parrish. Mecky, what's going on, Mecky? How you doing? You're usually pretty positive, so I could use probably whatever this super chat's going to be. Was begging for the starters in the fourth. They enter, and for the first two defensive possessions, they didn't know who their matchups were. Consecutive threes. My pet peeve playing hoops. Let's correct. Need to step up on national TV. Yeah, I mean, I think everybody was begging for the starters, and yet the instinct to ride with the bench, you could argue it was a good one. Did the starters sit for too long? Were they too cold by the time they came back in? Maybe that had to do with it. But like, and again, I'm not saying you're saying this. Killed the coach. I killed the coach at the start. Killed him. That the defensive matchups part of it, that's on the players. Like, they got to know who the hell they're guarding. That was embarrassing. And they should be embarrassed. Thanks, Mecky. Freeway Hustler 21. What's going on, Freeway Hustler? For the love of everything that's holy, please keep this team off of national TV. I guess I haven't been paying attention. Hold on. I think maybe I have because on the schedule. Hold on. Let's see. Because I took a picture of the schedule from before the year, which I think has the national TV games. So let me see here. All right. So Golden State loss, Philly ESPN game. That was a win, but it was an ugly win, and they almost lost it. Boston lost, Cleveland lost. The Indiana game originally was supposed to be on TNT. Did that end up being on TNT? I honestly forget. But they won that. Boston loss. Lakers loss. The Denver game, that was supposed to be on ESPN. They won that. Again, I don't remember if it was on ESPN or not. They were supposed to play against Brooklyn on the 21st, January 21st. That was supposed to be on TNT. Again, they won that game. I don't know if it was actually on TNT. Philly ESPN, January 15th. They won that game. Yeah, I'm looking at the other ones, like San Antonio on Christmas. A Phoenix game on ESPN earlier in the year. A Philly game earlier in the year. Like, yeah, I mean, this has been a recent thing, I think, is what we're agreeing. Recently, it has not gone great on national TV. Let's hope they could correct that on Thursday, because they're going to play the Lakers, and that's a national TV game. Thanks, Freeway Hustler. Dan Hidalgo, comeback player of the year, Tibbs hairline. Have not noticed. Thanks, Dan. Huck Frazier, what's going on, Huck? Shades of 2021 Tibbs. Yeah, not an unfair comment tonight. Need to shorten the McCall Hart shifts and reallocate minutes. Deuce had 16 minutes versus Hart's 27 after 3. Deuce needs 30. Size doesn't matter if the wings watch two guys box Mitch and the ball hits the floor. Yeah, I know the play you're talking about. It was ridiculous. It was in the fourth quarter when they still had a chance. Inexcusable. And I guess, like, if I went too hard on Tibbs at the top of the show, it's only because there are some things that the players collectively, like, have to own tonight, because it just was not an okay performance down the stretch. It just wasn't. They were not prepared to play. They just weren't. Thanks, Huck. Appreciate you. Darth Dream, what's going on, Darth? Josh's on-ball defense is low-key overrated, to be honest. You don't have to pussyfoot around that statement. Is it over? I mean, do people rate it highly? I guess so, because everybody always, when people talk about the Knicks this year, they talk about the 3 defensive wings. I know it's capable of being better. I've seen it capable of being better. It has been better recently. It was, again, down the stretch of Miami. I think he played. I would want to go back and watch some of those possessions. I think there were some good possessions with him on the ball. But most of the time, it's not. It's like, 80% speed. It's not good enough. Thanks, Darth. Harry Muller. What's going on, Harry? First time, long time, John. Thanks for coming aboard. Appreciate you. They're trying to fit 3 natural threes into the starting lineup. Opposing teams hate to see Hart off the bench. McCall needs to be empowered to play a microwave 2, and we need an anchor 5. Kessler, ? Cat at the 4. Well, you saved a lot of good stuff for this one, Harry. I think you got, because again, I wrote a whole newsletter today basically asking what's wrong with the starting 5. The numbers are not good, and they're getting worse. And it's not all Cat. It's like to think that all the issues with the starting 5 fall on Cat's shoulders and Cat's defense. It's not the case, because the offense hasn't looked good of late at all. And defensively, I think it's very fair to say these problems are not all on Karl-Anthony Towns at all. Is it that it's just positional overlap, and that in a league where, like, you're supposed to want a whole roster full of natural threes, like, you actually really don't want that, and you do want a little bit of diversity? I don't know. This is okay. I'll sit on this one for a second. Damn. Okay. Finish this comment, then I'll get back to the tweet that I just saw. So maybe that's part of the issue. Who do you move to the bench? Like, obviously, you're suggesting Hart. I agree that opposing teams hate to see Hart off the bench. And then as far as bringing in a traditional 5 to play alongside Karl-Anthony Towns, at this point, you can't really rule it out. But I do think that player, whoever it is, and maybe it's Kessler, I do think there needs to be a certain amount of skill there. Yeah, I think there needs to be a certain amount of skill there on the offensive end, certainly, but yeah, obviously, goes without saying. They need to be a good defender as well. All right, so I'm just gonna, I don't know what to do with this other than to just read it. Jordan Woods, who is the wife of Karl-Anthony Towns, as far as I know, she is certainly with Karl-Anthony Towns. I shouldn't say that wife. I'm not sure if they're married, but I know they're together. Just tweeted out, "Fuck cancer." First of all, yes, fuck cancer. Agree with that. And I hate reading into things that shouldn't be read into, but like, Karl-Anthony Towns missed the game tonight for personal reasons, and now the person that he's with tweets out, "Fuck cancer." So it's not hard to connect the dots there. And again, prayers to Karl and everybody in his orbit, to Jordan, to their whole, crew there. Okay. Let's move on. Almost done. Kevin Danishevsky, Herb Jones, an option? Deuce plus Mitch plus picks. Kevin, I think I will be I will be long retired from this job, and you will still be trying to acquire Herb Jones on the Knicks. I don't blame you. Herb Jones is awesome. I would love Herb Jones on the Knicks. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't know why the Pelicans would do that, but what do I know? Maybe look, you got your McCall wish. Maybe you'll get this one. Excuse me, as well. Okay. That's it. We're done. Thanks to everybody who contributed to the show. Thanks to everybody who watched the show tonight. Frustrating game, frustrating loss. Wouldn't blame anybody if they wanted nothing to do with thinking about this basketball game after it ended, or even before it ended. But we appreciate you tuning in and joining us here on the Knicks Film School Postgame Show presented by BetUS. If you dig the show, be sure to support us with a nice rating or review. Obviously, subscribe to everything. Consider joining the Knicks Film School Patreon, which continues to pump out just really, really high quality content. And we will be back with more funny games before you know it. Peace out.